Welcome to the session about IELTS listening test. Thank you for first of all subscribing and liking my previous introductory video, and I hope you'll do the same with this particular one. And what I'm going to do today is provide an overview about the listening test, which is one of the four components of IELTS. And listening test is the same for both test takers of the academic or general training versions. So no matter which category of IELTS you are going to appear at, listening test will be the same for you. Therefore, listening is a very important test for all. So let's look at what does this constitute. Listening test, of course, as it indicates, is a test of your listening ability, listening comprehension of English language. And the duration of this test is approximately 30 minutes. So the test lasts 30 minutes, and normally this would be the first test you'll be taking of the listening, reading, writing, and speaking. And the test starts with you looking at the question paper and then listening to the instructions. And you're meant to write the answers on the, while you go, you're meant to write the answers on the paper, on the sheet, but you'll also get time at the end of every section to transfer those answers to your answer sheet. So you don't write answers directly on your answer sheet, but you write it on the question paper, or you mark it and then you transfer it. This is what happens within the listening test. Now, it has 40 questions, 30 minutes, and you have to answer 40 questions. And what these questions are aimed to test your understanding of the main ideas being discussed in the test by this, in the conversations or in the discourses in the test. You will have to identify the main ideas, or you'll have to look at factual information. And sometimes you may have to, you'll be asked to identify the opinion or attitude of the speakers in those conversations. And also look at the purpose of the utterance. If they say something, what could be the purpose, or the pragmatics, as we would call it in linguistics. So that's what you will have to identify, or you'll be asked to identify through those questions. And and also your ability, it will also assess your ability to follow the ideas that is being discussed. So follow a conversation. If there are people talking, then you are required to understand what they're talking about and how these ideas are, formed and followed and, supported or opposed by those speakers. So broadly, these are the four abilities that are being tested. And the test per se have, there are about 4 recordings throughout the test. So the listening test constitutes of 4 recordings. The first one is a conversation between 2 people and in an everyday social context. And it could be meeting someone, talking about a party. It could be anything that you could have, can be a kind of a coffee machine conversation, as you could say, a social conversation. But also, this would be the easiest of all the segments within the listening test, because pretty much you'll be identifying very factual information as to sometimes the date, month, address, number, etc., telephone number. It could be quite a lot of those kind of normal day-to-day factual information that you may have to identify as responses or as answers to your questions. The second one is a monologue set in an everyday social context, like it could be perhaps a speech about local facilities. It could be a talk about the park or the new theater, or it could be any generic social monologue about a social context. could be a talk about an introduction to for example, introduction to a festival, could be any of those things. So a monologue, just one person speaks. So you literally, the challenge would be to really follow the whole conversation, follow this person's thoughts, and look for the critical information that they would share. So obviously, compared to the first segment, the second recording would be slightly more challenging. So the sequencing of these recordings are arranged in such a way that you will have the easiest conversations or easy to follow conversations and easy to identify answers appearing at the beginning, and the more complex, more difficult uh, or more challenging comprehension to be made towards the end of it. And of course, this will help you to settle in. With the first recording, you may feel happy that it will help you relax as a test taker. Because I remember when I took the test for the first time, I felt the same. So I was nervous at the beginning, but by the time you finish your first section, you calm down. Okay, yeah, this is it, and then just keep following. But one thing I also remembered the second time I took the test is that you cannot let your concentration on the listening go away even for a moment. So if you stay focused for 40 minutes, I don't know how many people can actually do that, but I'm sure like people who meditate, people who have that strict discipline should be able to do it. Otherwise, it's quite easy to get distracted. And one of the things we say in a listening test is that if you think that you have skipped or you've missed an answer, and you will know because you may be looking at one answer, one question first, and if you feel that you've missed something, it's best to just move on and maybe try to answer that question or guess the answer later on rather than wondering about what happened. Because once the recording is on, it will not stop for anybody. So you still have to go with the flow. Now let's come to the third recording. It's a conversation between up to four people. Now, this is it can be a very complex discussion between up 3 to 4 people set in an educational or training context. So, for example, it could be a university tutor talking to the student, or it can be a lecturer, it could be instruction given to a trainee. It could be any of those things in an academic or an educational context. There could be multiple people responding to it, discussing the assignment, clarifying questions, maybe, providing instructions, guidelines, or explanations. So it could be any of those things, and it can be perhaps a very, very complex conversation compared to the first or the second one for that matter. So that's the third recording. Fourth recording is again a monologue on an academic subject. So generally, this is a lecture. So monologue, nobody talking, nobody else talking. So it could be a monologue on a topic, on an academic topic. It could be from any area of academic study. It could be business, it could be science, it could be technology, engineering, social science, psychology, you name it. But generally, what I also find is that these conversations can be so interesting sometimes that there's a risk of getting carried away by the content of the conversation. So you have to always remember that you are there to write a test, and you are there actually looking for those answers. Now, something interesting about, or something important about listening is that you would get some time to read the section. Look at the section, each section of your assessment. You can you can read through the questions. One of the things you could ideally do is to try and guess the answers. For example, the first answer could be a number. Is it a number or name, or is it name of a place? So you can start fine tuning your mind, tuning your ears to actually look for those kind of information. So what could be the answer there, depending on the question. So it's very important to read the question. There's no second, not even a single second that you can actually waste in the test. Follow the instruction 100%, and you will have the best chance of getting the best possible score at your level of listening comprehension. So those are the four four recordings in a listening test. Now let's look at some of the question types. First question in most tests, is multiple choice questions. MCQ. Multiple choice questions can be answered with one correct answer, or sometimes more than one. So it will ask you whether, which are the two. So It'll be multiple choices, but you may have to identify one or more answers based on the question. So read the question very, very carefully. And how many answers are required is very important. So if you write just one answer, obviously, you would end up losing the point for that, losing the mark for that. In a multiple choice question, when you're required to choose one correct answer, A, B, C, or D, you'll be given like a question followed by three possible answers, or the beginning of a sentence followed by three possible ways to complete the sentence. So it could be picking a choice to complete a sentence, or providing a kind of a factual answer to a question. And it's also important here to, in a multiple choice question where you have more than one answers to be identified or chosen, you'll be given a longer list of possible answers. So, and told that you have to choose more than one answer. So read the instruction. Reading instruction is very, very critical here. And it's very important that you read the instruction before the recording begins, right? Now, multiple choice questions are used to test, of course, a wide range of skills, including identifying the facts. The skills that we discussed at the beginning could be identifying the facts, attitude, opinion. It could be any of those things. And it would require a fairly detailed understanding of the text, or the conversation that you've been listening to. Now, the second type of question is matching. You're required to match a number of, numbered list of items, and, maybe match the person with something, or a thing with something else, or a process with an object. It could be any of those things. So matching is used to assess skills, for listing for detail, whether you can understand the relationship, basically. Of course, matching is about relationship. So can you make out the relationship between two different types of things? Could be people and objects, process and objects, people and process, could be any of those things. It is also used to obviously recognize your ability to, the connections, not just the, comparisons, but also the connections. How are they connected to each other? And to see if you are able to deduce it from the conversation, from the discourse that you'll be, from the recording that you'll be listening to. Now, the third question type could be plan or map a diagram and labeling. Now, labeling, look, in academic context, and even in our general social context, you use a lot of labeling, whether you do the labeling or you actually read out the labeling. For example, if you are traveling, right, and you could be listening to someone providing instructions. So the airline announcement, for example, or could be the announcement, or the when you are being taken to on a tour in a museum or library, or a facility, or an industrial facility, for example. You will have to find labels, or parts labeled, etc. So this again is a matching task. So you have to match the object with the label, with the name, with identifying with the right kind of word. The ability to understand, for example, a description of a place, and or to relate, a concept to a visual representation. So they could be a wide range of labeling or mapping exercises, or it also could be identifying facilities on a map, for example. And you do that when you travel, don't you? So when you look at the map, you should be able to find it. Okay, yeah, here is the petrol pump, or servo, as we call it in Australia, for example, or service station, for that matter. Short form of servo is a short form of service station, and it could be identifying where you have an information center, maybe toilet facilities, for example, or food. It could be any of those things, or a lookout point, for that matter, right? So that's working with the map, or a plan, or a diagram. Now, then the next question type would be, complete a form, or a notes, or a table, or a flow chart, or a summary completion, basically. So you have the whole the major text is given, but you have to input the missing parts, right? So it could be completing a paragraph, for example, using sentences that are missing. Now, a form used to record factual data such as names, address, postcard, for example. A set of notes used to summarize information like how things are related to one another. So that could be the note taking. A table used to summarize the information which relates to a clear strategies like price, object, place, etc., etc. And then a flow chart used to summarize the process. So which gives clear stages and the connection between each step, step to step. So this is what roughly the mapping exercise is all about. And what is important is that in this particular type of question, you have to stick to the word limit. So if it says that no more than 2 words or no more than two or a word or a number, for example, if they ask you to write a number, you must write a number, not a word. So those bits of information are very important. They are not in the recording, but that will be in the printed question paper. So if the question paper asks you to use no more than 3 or 2 words, for example, you should not write more than 2 words. And it's also important that you have to write the right spelling. We'll come to that in a minute, but let's go to the next question type. It is sentence, sentence completion. It's a very, this particular sentence completion task, you are required to read a set of sentences summarizing the key information from either a listening test or one part of it. So there could be some written text and part of it could be spoken. So depending on the way the question paper is set, you may have to get the gist of the matter so that you can identify the missing words in the summary given. So the paragraph would be the summary of whatever you have read and listened to, and you will have to complete the missing blanks as you go through the process. Then you of course have what we call short answer questions. So it's basically in short answer questions, you're required to read a question and then write a short answer. And again, this is where no more than 2 words and or a number. Right. That's a typical kind of an instruction you'll get, because your answers should not be longer than 2 words if it says no more than 2 words. So summarizing, in other words, I mean, generally, if you look at it, you need to understand you need to have a very good understanding of what you're listening to. So you should be able to follow the conversations, the recordings, and there are gaps. There is something approximately 30 seconds gap between one section and the other. Use the time to think, follow the instructions, and write down the answers, and be adventurous. Say, for example, if you don't know the answer, if you think you missed an answer, use your understanding of the language, the context, and in many cases, you may be able to guess the answer. And because there are no negative marks, it's okay to make a mistake. Rather than leaving it blank, maybe you should try to see if you can guess the answer. And at the first place, don't get into a situation where you have to miss one answer. So it's 30 minutes, 4 recordings, 40 questions, and you will also get some time to transfer the answers to your answer sheet. And that is when you have to be absolutely careful about what you transfer. Don't miss the question number. Don't write the answer for the 23rd question against the 24th answer, in your answer card. So those points are very, very important for you. And of course, spellings. So spellings, number of words. Ultimately, it's all about listening to the instructions clearly and following the instruction, both written and spoken. That's the listening test. And listening test normally should give you a good feeling that if you've listened to it, it should give you a good feeling that you've done reasonably well, and that will set the tone for the rest of the day for you. So if listening test goes well, of course, then you get into the reading test. And I'll be doing another video, another live soon about the reading test. And please watch out this space. And if you have not subscribed, or if you've not, press the bell icon, please do it now, so that when we go live again, when I go live again for you, you will get the intimation first. And for today's recording, today's live, if you have any question, no matter when you're listening to this, listening to me on this video, please feel free to ask a question. I'll try to respond to your questions as much as possible. Now, I'll conclude this with some more insight about what I would do to improve my listening skills, both as a learner of English language, because I speak English as my fifth language. I don't know how many other languages you speak, so English is certainly not my first language. And neither my family used to speak English, and I've mentioned this in a different video earlier. But coming back to preparing for listening, if you are going to appear for a listening test, do that a lot. Do listen to English a lot. Listening to, not watching. So if you want to watch English movies, do it for entertainment. But I would listen to radios, podcasts, recordings, and there's plenty of resources available, on the internet these days. So unlike what it used to be when I was preparing for these tests, we had very limited source of recorded English, spoken English. So there's a lot that you can hear. There are millions of channels broadcasting or podcasting English language. Listen to them all. Listen to conversations. Listen to different accents. That's the other thing. Not so let it be an American accent or New Zealand accent, an Australian accent, or British accent, doesn't matter. Or it can be Indian, Sri Lankan, or Singaporean or Kenyan accents, because you will find a very good mix of accents being spoken in the listening test. Although predominantly it will be spoken by native speakers, but you'll find a lot of accent variation. So it's also important to fine tune. It's almost like learning music, perhaps. I'm not asking you to learn music, but you certainly will have to pay attention to the way languages are spoken, the pronunciation. Sometimes if our pronunciation is not in line with the speaker's pronunciation, it can confuse you. It happens even now, like when I listen to people, and if I'm not really paying attention, if they speak a different accent, a very thick accent, can be very difficult for me to understand what they're saying. So before you get into the listening test, listen to a lot of English spoken in various contexts. And of course, when they speak, one of the things I did was, especially when I prepared for the test the second time, what I did was I was listening to a lot of English, and I was wondering what could be the questions that someone would ask if the news item or the news bulletin or the conversation or podcast that I was listening to could be used as a test material. Now that's an exercise if you are able to extend your, practice for listening test. But if you cannot get there, it doesn't matter. Just follow the instruction, keep it simple, listen to it carefully, and first thing when you start or before the test begins, take a deep breath, relax. Now, that's the final word I would say, relax, because your listening test is not the end of it. It certainly can be the beginning of a lot of things. So wishing you very best for your next listening test. I hope this conversation has been helpful for you, and certainly looking forward to hearing from you. Share your experiences, share your thoughts. And if you are a test taker, if you are a trainer, if you are a parent, if you are a student, if you are a teacher, please help us get across to the thousands of students who appear at a test, an IELTS test every day around the world. So thank you so much for listening and following. Please share, and please, of course, subscribe if you haven't done it yet. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and good luck with your next test. Bye-bye.